I think the problem, especially in the fashion industry, comes from when I'm told I need something in order to feel good or feel cool or feel accepted. And then it kind of creates this never ending pit of just consumption because, we're kind of told and shown like, hey, to look this good, you need these things. And that's something we have to really deal with because then you're going to consume and consume and still feel the same way.
Welcome to FemMD, real talk for women who are balancing careers, ambition, and the chaos that comes with it all. Today's guest is Lindsey White. She works in the fashion industry as a fit model and jewelry designer. She's worked with some big brands like Tory Burch, Peloton, Alice and Olivia. I'm so excited to chat with her today. Let's dive in. Hey, Lindsey, how are you?
Yeah, excited to be here.
Lindsey, not everyone knows what a fit model does. Can you walk us through what is fit modeling?
Yeah, so fit modeling is not fitness modeling like a lot of people think. It's actually a behind the scenes job where I'm a walking, talking mannequin for designers. So I'll go into a brand's office and I'll try on all the latest clothes that they're producing, whether it's before designing and before the runway or after. So I pretty much see a garment getting made from concept to sales floor.
How did you get into that initially?
I kind of lucked into it. I modeled, in the past. I had done some modeling in high school and through college and even post college. But I was living in Austin and I, had this degree in fashion and I decided to pick up and move to New York kind of on a whim and, try to get into the modeling scene in New York, even though, my agency back in Austin was like, you'll never find your way. Like, don't do this. You're going to be a small fish in a really big pond. But I did it anyway. And yeah, I got told no by pretty much everyone, every agency I ever tried to see. But, I decided to bartend in the wake of it, trying to, at least make rent and try as much as I could to make New York work. And then I had a friend come into my bar one night who was like, wow, you look like you could be a fit model and we're looking for someone at my brand. Would you want to come in? So that week I went in and out of 20 or 30 girls that they saw from agencies, the designer ended up going with me. So I kind of got my foot in the door that way. And then once you're in, you can, go around to other brands and say like, hey, I work for this brand. You should work with me now. So yeah. And then after that, agencies started wanting to sign me.
So then when you go in and help, like when you do some of the fit modeling and are working with the brands, do you get much of a say or do you ever get to provide any feedback to their designers and creative team?
It definitely depends. You have to read the room. If they want
Okay.
if they want that from you, great. If they don't, you really have to decide to, or you kind of have to know when not to speak. I've been told to kind of shut up at times, but I think by building a relationship with the brand, they really value feedback. And a lot of time I'll be trying on a garment that I know well, if I've been with a brand for a few seasons or many years, I can tell when something's off. So one time, I could tell this elastic was really rigid. It wasn't like we usually have. And, they opened up the garment and they saw the factory had swapped the elastic quality. So it's, and they might not have known that had they not had a real person trying on the piece or, being able to give that feedback. So, I think it's important to know when to provide the feedback, but when it's a design decision, it just depends on the brand.
Yeah, that like emotional intelligence comes into play. You were talking about like reading the room. I can imagine the pressure to stay like the exact same size is a challenge. Like talk about that. Like how just for most women, I feel like our bodies fluctuate like monthly.
I know. Yeah, it's a really weird job for that because you have to stay consistent. That's your number one prerequisite to having the job, and it means a lot to the brand to have a consistent body. It's like, again, you're a mannequin and it's not just being thin or a size 2, or 4, you need to have all the, measurements and, like kind of proportionate. So yeah, I kind of feel like in some ways, you kind of win the genetic lottery where it didn't take me that much effort, but I think maintaining, it's like making sure if you're at that already at a size 2, 4, 6, 10, which, fit models can be any size, even plus size fit models exist. And it's just maintaining, so you kind of get to know your body really well. And okay, if I, eat this way, drink that way, and work out this way, you get to see how everything kind of interacts. And so I had to learn, like, okay, I can't be cycling, I can't be doing these soul cycle workouts anymore because I build in my thighs and then my thigh measurement would be off, but I'd feel strong and I would love the workout, but I couldn't do that anymore. I'd have to maybe, go more towards the yoga, Pilates, body weight training, that kind of thing. So yeah, I mean, it was a lot of trial and error, but you get measured every month by a lot of these clients, no matter the time of the month. And it's real pressure.
Yeah, I was a gymnast like in my former life, and it kind of depended on your coach. But when I got to college, things really took kind of a dark turn. Like they would measure us all the time, they would weigh us all the time, they would measure our body fat percentage. And I was kind of the camp of like, I'm not a model, I'm an athlete. Like, get your hands off of me. I really hated that component. Whereas some of my teammates came from gyms where that was much more common before college, so they were very used to it. And certainly in gymnastics, it's kind of a breeding ground for some unhealthy eating habits or eating disorders. Can you talk a little bit about, like, with modeling, I would assume it's similar. What are some of like the healthy and unhealthy habits that you have either practiced or like some of your colleagues you've seen with them?
Yeah, I mean, I think yes, and that's a great point. I mean, I can only imagine the pressure that comes with really having to perform in that way, like a gymnast does. I have found kind of with what this type of modeling is, it's like you really just want to feel naturally good in your body. And when you start dictating like your salt intake, your calorie intake, things start to really fight with yourself. I've had this conversation with a lot of other fit models, and we've all kind of come to this conclusion after some time, like just letting it be, letting yourself kind of naturally be the size you are, is where that sweet spot is for the industry and for maintaining over the span of years, because fit models can be 40, 50, 60. I mean, and these women are the same size, but I think it's when you naturally are that size and you're not trying to be smaller. And, it's this really, I mean, as far as things that I've done unhealthy, I feel like I've always had a pretty good mindset because I think I came from a background of like doing other things, not like having to be this thin model, that this is my only job. So I think feeling like I'm more of a diversified person kept things in check for me. Like, I don't have to do this if I don't want to, it's a great job and I really like it, but I'm going to, I think coming at everything from a healthy mindset is kind of the way to go. But yeah, I've known
it's
other
not do or
models.
die.
No, I mean, not for me, but I mean, that is a place I think we've all, as models, had to walk that line, of what am I willing to do, in order to keep this job. And I think it's a constant conversation. I think we all have issues with our bodies, and I think models especially, because you have that pressure to stay a certain size. And so often you can't help but compare yourself with the person who gets the job when you don't. Like, what did they have that I didn't? And I think you have to just let it be, I think it's again, that part of you that wants to compare, that it doesn't help.
Yeah. I remember one time I argued with one of my coaches because they wanted me to go tanning before a meet, and I'm like very fair. I also was like at the time getting a degree in biology. I'm a physician now, and I was like, no, tanning's horrible. Like, this was like before spray tans were even an option. And I kind of remember we got into an argument about, which very simply, like, tanning is like, I would say not that big of a deal compared to like some models probably are asked to do certain things with their bodies that they either do like surgically or maybe tell their agency no. Can you talk a little bit about body modification?
It's a good question because, yeah, I mean, here's the thing with this job is like you can sometimes have like the perfect upper body without the perfect lower body. And then you're kind of thrown into this category of only fitting tops and jackets, and you can't fit bottoms or skirts. So, yeah, oftentimes if there is a modification that can be done, I've known of models getting breast implants in order to meet the size that they need for an upper body, no shame. I think if
Mhm.
that's something that they want to do, go for it. But I do feel it's got to be for a reason other than your job. I think it's got to
Oh,
feel
for
like
sure.
a whole, like this improves my sense of feeling, I don't know, maybe just something you like to see in the mirror. I
Hmm.
don't think I've
Yeah.
ever had an agency ask me to do anything. I mean, I have had an agency ask if I wanted to do print modeling, I would need to do lip filler because my upper lip is thin. And I was like, and this was back in 2010, when I feel like it wasn't as big of a thing as it is now. I was like, I don't even know how I do that. I don't know what that would look like long term. And I opted out. Yeah. I mean, I kind of wonder what it would look like, but I kind of feel like sometimes you have to really walk that line of it looking like it's done versus not, you know.
Oh, for sure. And I'm a facial plastic surgeon. I do like lip filler all the way to facelifts, kind of depending on the patient, what they want. And whenever someone comes in, I do kind of ask, like, what is motivating your decision to modify things? And almost universally, it's like, I just want to look younger. I want to feel more confident in my skin. And that's the best answer. When people say, like, oh, this is for my spouse, or, insert ulterior motive, I pause and I say, like, I'm not sure if that's the best reason to pursue doing something really invasive with lots of risks.
Mhm.
Because in the end, if you're doing it for someone else, you're probably not going to be happy with the outcome, regardless if it's a good outcome or not.
Well, how do you feel about people who have this pressure from society saying you need to look younger? Because in my head, that's someone else's motivation versus your own. Do you find like people keep coming back for more and more because they're never fully satisfied?
Uh, I think it's individually dependent. I also think, how do you parse out like societal or cultural expectations versus? So I think women in particular, we are judged based on how we look day to day. Like even at the grocery store, we are judged on how we look compared to like our male counterparts much more frequently. And then a lot of women, come in and they say, like, especially with menopause, I feel like I dramatically aged and people just don't notice me anymore. Or I'm getting passed up on promotions at work if they work in like big corporate environments. And they just don't feel like they look like they feel on the inside. There's like an incongruency there. And so it's often a decision that people think about for a really long time before they even come in. And then again, before they go under the knife. So I do think that most of my patients do it for themselves, but there's this huge like cultural overlay that even though they're doing it for themselves, I think societal pressure on women is much higher than on men. What do you think?
I agree. I mean, I always kind of think of nature and like, in the the bird world, it's like always the men that have all the color and all the flourishes, and then the women are just kind of like brown. But here as humans, it's the opposite. Like we have all this pressure, but also I think we love it. Like I love looking good and feeling good. But I think the problem, especially in the fashion industry, comes from when I'm told I need something in order to feel good or feel cool or feel accepted. And then it kind of creates this never ending pit of just consumption because, oh, we need 3 new sweaters in this color for this season, and
Yeah.
we need at least 2 new shoes this season for, it's like we're kind of told and shown like, hey, to look this good, you need these things. And, that's something we have to really deal with because then you're going to consume and consume and still feel the same way. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I think it's for men and women, but definitely women, we feel it. But I think we also kind of love the game sometimes, like if we can play
Yes.
it well, it's kind of fun.
Okay, so I love that you brought up the bird analogy because I wanted to ask you about like pregnancy and postpartum and how that played into your career. We think about flamingos and there's this like story. I don't know if it's actually true or not, but sometimes the female flamingos like lose their pinkness postpartum because all of their like nutrients and energy is going to their babies. Talk about, how the like pregnancy and postpartum journey fit into your career and if it led you to some of the entrepreneurial things that you're doing today.
Yeah. I mean, it's all connected for sure. I have a 2-year-old now, so, it was, I guess, 2 years and change that I kind of had to quit my job, because I was able to get until I was 20 weeks pregnant until I had to tell my clients, hey, I'm pregnant. My body's changing and there's nothing we can do about it. And yeah, it was interesting because I kind of had been with a lot of these teams for 10 plus years. And some of them were just kind of like, poof, you're gone. Never heard from them again, and then that, it just feels like, oh, I guess I wasn't as big of a team member as I thought I was, but I get it. Like you're kind of talent hired on in a way with this job. And then some clients were amazing and, like wanted my registry and wanted to send me things, which was really sweet. But yeah, I mean, I was out of work for a long time and that's stressful, especially when you're living in a place like New York City, it's expensive. And it took me about 6 months postpartum to really feel like I was ready to go back to work. And I kind of had this opposite problem that I think a lot of women have. I breastfed, but I lost weight. I lost a size. So I was a 4 and a very busy working size 4 fit model. I'm now a 2 and size 2 is not as busy. And I just couldn't get my clientele back. I just wasn't able to work as much. So and gaining weight sounds like it could be easy, but when you really have to do it proportionately, that's hard. It just didn't feel right. It felt like a lot of effort that I might not be able to maintain. So yeah, my husband and I decided to move back to Austin, where he's from and where both of our families live. And since then, I've been getting more into jewelry design, which is something I've been doing for a while, but more on the side. So now I have a little bit more time, despite the juggle of having a 2-year-old, and getting into home goods too. Now that I have a home and I feel like I want to, explore my own creativity with, my surroundings.
Do you feel like seeing more of the end product with your fit modeling helped you in terms of the front end, like jewelry design and like talk about how I hate to say your previous life because it's still your present life, but like talk to us about how the modeling has impacted your ability to design things.
I think the coolest part of my job was always being a fly on the wall for all the creativity going on around me and designers that were really, sought after and highly regarded. And so it was amazing to kind of be there to see their decision making down to the 1/8 of an inch of a button placement, all these specifics that we don't even think about as consumers, but that's the whole point, is that it's beautiful and we we're attracted to it because of all these little things and it just in place perfectly. So it definitely helped me to be more detail oriented, to really think twice about materials, why I'm making decisions. And I think quality overall. I mean, I'm trying on 100 to 300 garments in a day, and I get to really feel the difference between a well-crafted garment and one that's made cheaply out of cheap fabric. And so for me, it's all about, I think, and I think a lot of times we give something true energy in a way, like when we're makers and putting things into what we make, we're kind of putting our energy into that thing. And you can feel that. I really do think that you can feel a well-designed garment. And so, yeah, it's just what I've been trying to do is emulate that in some way. And also just
Yeah.
create good quality pieces that people love.
It almost made me think of the scene in Devil Wears Prada where Anne Hathaway is kind of giggling about this belt decision, and Meryl Streep's character is talking about how, like, you think things just happen and appear, but actually there is so much attention to detail and decision and contemplation and creativity that goes into the design and fashion that we are presented with in stores. And for sure, being a fly on the wall, I'm sure the fashion industry is much more complex than like most of us appreciate.
Definitely. And there's so much that is put into each garment, you know, and you have to like really think of all the hands, you know, all the factories, all the time spent sourcing materials and you know, and even I think the saddest part, and you know, because the fashion industry is cool and all, but it also is very, it's not sustainable. It's very wasteful. And it's always a little sad to like see this beautiful garment that I think is beautiful. And then the designer just be like, nope, it didn't look exactly as I wanted, throw it out. You know, there's that too that exists. There's kind of this dark side to the fashion industry where I think it is walking that line of understanding that sometimes things aren't going to be perfect because it's handmade, and then understanding like, okay, this is good. This is close enough. This is as good as we're going to get, and not pushing beyond the envelope of what's possible. I think there's a lot of people in the industry who really feel just a sadness all around because of that constant consumption and that really high intense calendar, repeating every year. It's a lot of waste.
Yeah. You know, when you talk about the good enough aspect and not pushing things to perfection, it's the most important thing I tell people before having surgery on their face, that there's no such thing as a perfect result. And that while they want perfection, I want perfection. Like, unfortunately, we live in this universe that is not perfect. And I am a human and they are a human. And I tell folks that if we shoot for like an 80 to 85% improvement, to me, that seems like a very realistic goal. And I think probably with like handmade jewelry, it's similar in a sense. What led you to jewelry specifically?
I loved I love wearing things, you know, I feel like with garments, you need a lot of hands. I mean, like really you get everything made in factories for the most part. But with jewelry, I really felt like this handcrafted attachment. You know, I could be in my studio and I could make each piece. I could have my hands on each piece. And that felt really important to me. And my dad actually taught me how to weld, you know, 10 years ago. I came back to Texas over Christmas break. And I was like, I want to learn how to make these rings. And we went into the garage and, you know, he taught me how to weld. And from then on, I was just really into getting a studio, getting tools, really being able to kind of connect in that way. So it's, you know, having a fashion background, it's accessories. It's just an extension of that, but it has less to do with fit, which is really great. Even though I'm a fit model,
Yeah.
it's like there's so much involved to fit. But with jewelry, it really, you know, anyone can try on a pair of earrings, and if it works, it works. And yeah, I kind of really liked that tangible, you know, hands-on approach to jewelry.
So, Lindsay, I'm curious, with fit modeling, was that ever in a way kind of like a propeller to introduce some of your jewelry to some of these brands?
Definitely. Yeah. One of the clients I worked for the longest, Allison Olivia, they actually I made crowns and jewelry for one of their fashion shows a few years ago. And that was really lovely to get to, you know, I guess in a way collaborate with them, you know, on a different side. And kind of felt like I got a little bit more respect from the designer from that too. But yeah, it's really fun. I've had a couple designers actually ask me about jewelry that I'm wearing, purchase pieces off of me even. You know, I think it's all about the full look too. Oftentimes I would just go into the fitting wearing my jewelry and it would, you know, always kind of interact and, you know, you get your compliments. And so yeah, I definitely felt like this synonymous, you know, world being able to show up not just as a fit model, but also as a, you know, creative myself and, you know, get to engage them with questions about what I make.
Yeah. Was that a passive thing that just started happening or was that intentional?
Definitely passive. I never liked to push anything. It also feels forced when you do that. So I would always just wait for the compliment. And then of course, oh, thanks, I made it. So yeah, it was something that if it worked out, great. If not, no worries, nothing lost.
I love that. So talk a little bit more about the logistics of your jewelry business. How far into the business are you? Kind of what are your current struggles? What are some of your favorite parts of the business?
I have been making jewelry for 10 years now. So it was always the juggle between fit modeling, jewelry studio time. I mean, I am doing everything. I'm a one-woman show. I make everything. I design everything. I manage the website, pack the packages and the sales, and it's a lot. And definitely things kind of don't get the attention that they deserve, and that's frustrating. And that's, I think, always the juggle of figuring out, when it is good to outsource something, when it is, necessary to do that. So that's probably my biggest struggle. And I think, and it's seasonal too. I tend to do most of my jewelry sales around the holidays. So I'll, pick up a couple markets, go in person, get that one-on-one feedback from people, seeing what they touch, what they want to try on, what they're excited about. And that helps me as a designer for the future, to keep going in a certain direction versus another. But I think ultimately what matters and what I love the most is just staying curious and creative, being able, trying not to let, I think, the burden of it needing to be a certain way, make a certain amount of money. I mean, it'd be nice if it does pay the bills in all the ways. But, you really, I think for me, in order to stay truly confident in it, I have to just be curious and playful.
I love that. I have been trying to implore more curiosity in my own life because I've been meeting with a coach about like business development, personal development, and oftentimes she encourages me to be more curious about certain things. And I do think it is quite helpful because it's hard to be mad when you're curious. It's hard to be frustrated when you're curious. Curiosity really promotes like a sense of optimism and excitement.
Yeah.
Even like I have two young children, and like even when they're upset about something, rather than being like, quit it, knock it off, it's like, okay, what's going on here? Like, let's
Mhm.
pause and kind of explore. Okay, so when you had your child, not only did it kind of shift your career, but it also adds a human into your family. Talk about kind of time management and how you juggle the day to day with mom life right now.
Yeah, it's hard. Like yesterday wasn't a great day, but that's okay. I think, you know, it has been the most resilient building exercise being a mother, trying to start or restart a business in a way, detaching from an old life and building something kind of, I guess it's like being really comfortable with change, constant change. And that, again, is where some curiosity can come into play. But also, I think practices like mindfulness, like kind of understanding, despite the chaos, there can be an underlying groundedness throughout it all, a stillness that can rest, almost like you're a tree. And, like a part of you is the root system, and the leaves out here can sway with, all the chaos. But I am, yeah, I'm really trying to understand um how to how to live that balanced life. And I think women and mothers, I mean, we're just thrown into it. We kind of have to just figure it out as we go. But oftentimes I surprise myself with that natural ability to kind of move along and be fluid. So that's definitely what I'm trying to think of, and staying positive and not always thinking about the ways that I'm failing, because we're all failing. We're all, there's no perfect. And that's also
Yeah.
beautiful. That's like, what is perfect and what does the perfect life look like? I don't think anyone will have the same answer to that. So, and that's going to be constantly changing as we evolve. So yeah, I think there's been a huge evolution and then a huge getting comfortable with change for me.
I love the visuals you just gave with like the tree swaying in the wind, going with the flow. Oftentimes, if I'm solo with both my boys and my husband isn't around, I almost picture myself as like a piece of seaweed. And we're like, wherever they take me, I'm going to go with them. Because if I try to direct them, if I try to be the cruise ship, it tends not to be a very enjoyable day.
They
They're,
sense that. They're like, "Wait,
oh,
you're trying
yeah.
to dictate what I want to do? No way." I also think there's
Yeah.
something fun with like, where are you going to take this playtime, you know? And I think
Yeah.
I was raised, I think, a little bit more with like, we have to live in mom and dad's world. When I think there is a little bit of this, like, how can mom and dad play in your world, you know? And then when it's time to, you know, get disciplined or, you know, like we need to learn a lesson here, then we teach this lesson, you know, but when we play, we play. So, you know, it's definitely brought out the inner child in me, which I love. You know, I feel more youthful now. I feel like I could, you know, I think maybe like take on a little bit more than I could before.
I love that. It's expanded your capabilities.
Whether I like it or not.
As an entrepreneur with lots of different pots on the stove right now, what are you looking forward to or what's on the horizon?
I mean, I love, again, expanding into new modalities and new materials. And so I've been making more lighting, which I love. I mean, I despise overhead light. So little lamps here and there, you know, has been really fun for me to explore. My dad is an electrical engineer, so he comes to the table with the know-how and I come with the designs and we collaborate, father-daughter in his studio. So being back in Austin, being able to work with him on a regular basis has been really exciting for me. I think for both of us, we both love it. So I'm hoping to create more content around that. Also, being able to utilize sustainable materials. I have always loved this idea of like trash to treasure. So there's this, you know, there's all kinds of stuff around us that we live with and then discard. And so I love going to metal scrap yards, seeing what is discarded and what can be made into something beautiful from remnants. So I think that kind of content is also really interesting for people to see. You know, it's not just taking things that, you know, already, I don't know, taking things that already exist and remaking them into something usable, functional. To me, that's the ultimate in design.
I love that. Even my desk that I'm sitting at right now. So I had a colleague, I built my whole office, furnished the entire thing, designed it all. I also hate overhead lighting. Um, but I had a colleague text me last night, like, budget wise, what did you spend on all of your decor and furniture? And like, where did you save? And I'm like, well, some of the stuff that I got was on Facebook Marketplace and I just sanded it down and restained it. So I think there should be, and I think there is a huge movement for sustainability.
And also you being able to sit at your desk and be like, I helped create this. That's got to feel like an extension of yourself, right?
Yeah, I also
Yeah.
love working with my hands. Like as a surgeon, I like doing stuff that is like similar. Like I can imagine I've never made jewelry or light fixtures, but I've installed light fixtures.
And
um,
which is cool. I mean, I think women in power tools is like the best.
Yeah, between residency, well, medical school and residency, I had like a month off and I told my husband like I'm going to rip up all our flooring and put down new hardwood floors. And he was like, "What? You've never done that?" And I'm like, "Well, there's YouTube. I'll figure it out. I'll borrow my dad's saws." And I don't know, I really really enjoyed just like learning a new trade and doing something where you're like definitively at the end of each day you're like, "Wow, look at what I made. Look at the progress we have." It was so rewarding.
Yeah,
I
definitely.
wish I had some more time today to do some of that stuff.
That is the hardest thing is finding the time because it's like if you're okay with taking risk, knowing you might make a mistake or two, but ultimately like you're going to have a much more, I don't know, you're going to have an attachment to what you live around. That's like, again, that's the energy that you're putting out there that just makes living even better, you know, just fully. Like I have some white walls right now, but I can't wait to paint them. You know, now that I'm here full time in Austin in this house, I'm like, oh, I just all the things I want to do, but in due time, you know, like not rushing it. That's important. I've got a question for you if we have time.
Yeah, go ahead.
What as someone who actually hasn't had anything done, I've never done anything invasive or Botox or anything. What do you find is like a potential harmful trend right now in trying to stay youthful before the knife?
I think the easiest way to look weird is to get too much filler. I think the pendulum swung very much in favor of filler for many years, and a lot of patients were getting overfilled. And while filler is okay, like in moderation, like most things, if you do it to excess, it starts to distort the face. It looks bizarre. It attracts water. So people like look puffy and weird. Um, and so I tell patients, like, my line is it's always better to look a little bit closer to your age than it is to start looking weird or distorted. And so I think the pendulum is swinging back. I think more patients are being more skeptical of filler. I also think that one dangerous trend is trying to look like a certain demographic. I hate to call it the Kardashians right now, but like that ultra contoured, like perfect skin. I love the Bobby Brown mentality where it's like, let's just take your face and like accentuate the things that are unique to you and not try to like overly change the way you look.
Definitely natural is, I mean, I think better.
I think every woman is so incredibly beautiful in their own way. And I think it's hard for us to see that in ourselves. I think we're definitely our harshest critics. And so sometimes I tell patients, like, let's not do anything right now. Like, I think you should just enjoy being you.
I mean, it's the same with modeling in your body. It's like I'm never going to have a perfect body despite being hired to have a perfect body. And I have to appreciate little things like my belly button's really high compared to most people. Who knew? I don't
Okay.
care. But it's actually become
is there like
an
a
issue.
standard measurement for that?
Kind of, yeah. A belly button is usually
Okay.
1.5 inches below your waist. Mine is at my waist. So it's just I think 20% of the population has a high belly button. And so it throws designers off when I'm trying on pants, because the belly button is like, is it covered? Is it high waisted or is it shown? Because, your waistband's lower than your belly button. And most of the time my belly button's going to be shown, even if it's high waisted. So it's like a funny thing about your body that, it's like, who cares? Right. But I think I still kind of love my belly button placement, even though there've been times in my career where I've hated my belly. I don't know. It's kind of this like quirk that makes me unique. And, and despite that, I still love it. So I think we can all appreciate these little parts. And instead of someone being, telling me like, hey, your belly button's in the wrong place. It's like, no, it's not. It's exactly where it should be, for me.
Yeah. Okay, Lindsey. Well, for anyone who's listening, where can we find your jewelry? Where can we find more of you?
I have a website. I love Instagram. It's basically my mobile business card. So that's a great place to find where I might be set up for markets for the holiday season locally, any sales that I might be having, flash Instagram story sales, that kind of thing. I'm trying to get into TikTok. It's on the to-do list as far as, reaching more people long term. But yeah, I'm hoping to be creating a lot more content now that I am doing this full time.
I love it. Well, cheers to another mom out there just making the world spin, doing her thing.
Yes.
Thanks so much,
trying
Lindsey.
to find peace in it all.
Yeah.
Thank you, Lauren. I appreciate the conversation. Thanks.
Today's episode is brought to you by the Hippocratic Collective. Check out our shows and content at hippocratic-collective.com. Thanks for tuning into FemMD, and remember, the world belongs to the women who question it.